Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this December 14th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon, here on the EOA network. How are you, man?
Morning.
How's it going?
First Friday.
First Friday. Yep.
We're only 11 days until Christmas.
I know. I was trying to think of that, what that is. I actually succeeded in getting some Christmas presents, and so that's like...
You're doing better than me. So wait, if today's the 14th, 15th would be Friday, 16th, 18th, so Christmas is on a Monday.
Yeah.
That means New Year's is on a Monday, too.
Yeah. It's kind of weird this year.
Well, it's better than it being in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
It means at least you get 3-day weekends.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't think we're going to do a show on the 26th. Yeah. So
It's up to you.
I'll be on the road coming home on the 26th. Yeah, because we're going to go over and see Michaela and stuff. We draw names in our family, and so I don't. I mean, other than the grandkids, all of the grandkids get something from us. But as far as on my side of the family, then we draw names and.
So you don't have to get presents for everybody?
No, it's not quite as intense because there's
I mean, it's
between
a
how
commercial
many
holiday.
There's 8
anyways.
of adults. Yeah, between us. Yeah.
Get a bag of coal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I did successfully get something for Tanya, which is like, yeah.
What'd you get her?
I'm not gonna tell you.
She's not gonna watch this.
No, she won't. Yeah, unless but somebody might tell her. It's like, hey, Brett said what, but she's gonna be surprised. Put it that way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, she's not expecting what it is.
Are you in the hole on brownie points, or are you trying to get ahead?
Well, normally we don't buy each other Christmas presents. You know, I mean, it's just kind of, and I mean, it's kind of the same thing for. I mean, I'll get her something for anniversary or for her birthday, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, we just normally don't. We could, you know, and it's kind of funny because, you know, the other day I was talking about growing up poor, and it's like, there are times it's like, I still want presents, man. On birthday, you know, every opportunity I want.
Yeah, I don't really care.
But
personally.
I'm hard to buy for, you know. I mean, and because I mean, any technological thing out there that I can justify as a business expense, I just get, you know, and so there's not much that I mean, that's how older people are when they get to that point. It's like they've accumulated all the stuff they want in their life.
Best present, like for me, is cook. Cook for me. Make me some food.
All right.
I'm happy with that.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't. I'm not into the whole present.
Been
thing.
trying to decide. We're having our company Christmas thing tomorrow night, and which I thought about maybe having steak. How do you like?
I would not complain.
How do you like your steak cooked?
However, but I like it like medium rare, but I'll eat it however it's cooked. I don't complain.
Yeah. So Bennett, how do you like your steak? Medium rare. So
I'll take it however though.
Yeah, and I think that's what
you would be picky.
I asked Gabe, and he said he likes his rare. Him and his girlfriend both like theirs rare.
Yeah, I don't care. I would eat it even if it was rare. I wouldn't complain.
Yeah. So,
like in a restaurant, I never send food back. No way.
I don't either.
No way. I've seen the movie Waiting where they do bad things to your food
you send
in the
it back. Yeah.
Yeah, no way. Not doing it. Nope. I'll just be happy with it. You know what I mean?
Like,
if I say no tomatoes and it comes with tomatoes, I'll pick them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No big deal. Whatever. I'm not sending it back and getting it dropped on the floor or a loogie hawked in it or whatever. You know, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has happened, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Because I mean, they made a whole movie about it.
Yeah, I have a friend who, I mean, he's retired now, but he was a cop, and he was always nervous about going through the drive-up particular. I mean, because people
you're
would
a
know
cop.
that he was a cop. And
I used to mess with the cops here when I worked at Burger King.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything bad to their
Yeah.
stuff, but like one time the guy came through and ordered extra pickles, and I gave him extra pickles.
You gave him a whole.
Yeah. extra. I just kind of figured like it would be a joke. You know,
Yeah.
he can pick them off if he doesn't want that many. You know what I mean? It's pretty funny.
Yeah. All right, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
Morning Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Go check out their showroom. They have a spectacular showroom. They have a great selection of recliners, mattresses, home furnishings, big red rocking chair on Elm off Adams in LeGrand, Northwest Furniture and Mattress. LeGrand boys basketball plays tonight versus Fruitland right here at home. Tip off at 7 p.m. They got to get things going. I mean, they've won one game so far out of 5. So hopefully they can get a big dub at home tonight against Fruitland. Girls travel to Vail tomorrow for a 6:30 Mountain Time tip-off against the Vikings, who are undefeated. Vail's undefeated. They're a really tough 3A girls basketball team, so that'll be a test for our girls basketball team. LHS boys wrestling is at Tri-State this weekend, which is one of the toughest tournaments that they're going to be in all year. I mean, including the state tournament. There's always a bunch of studs at Tri-State, so that'll be a good test for LHS. I think Kai Carson is back from an injury. He didn't get to wrestle. 2-time state champion, didn't get to wrestle at the Meilenberg, which was kind of a bummer. You know what I mean? And it's his senior year, and he's missing out on some really important tournaments. So hopefully he gets to wrestle this weekend at Tri-State. EOU men's and women's basketball are in Portland this weekend for the Multnomah Warner Pack trip. They need to get things on track. The men's team especially. Women's team have dropped 3 in a row. They were picked to win the CCC, and they got to turn it around now. This conference is tough, and you can't start out in the hole in this conference. So they got to make something happen this weekend. EOU men's wrestling is in Reno for the weekend. They duel Montana State Northern and St. Ambrose University on Friday. And then it's the Reno Tournament of Champions on Sunday and Monday for the men. And then the women's wrestling will send some of their squad to Reno to take on Wayland Baptist on Friday, while some of them will be in California at the Women's West Coast Tournament of Champions. Yesterday, I dropped the first Wrestling Wednesday of the year with Clell Carson and Dustin Azure, and they talked about influential things that have been said to them in the wrestling world. Have a look.
I think just probably my dad, you know, and just let me know that, you know, one day sitting me down after, after my freshman year, All-American, my sophomore year, I was kind of having a roller coaster season. Like we were trying to figure it out, if it was mental, if it was a weight cut, if it was my strength, what it was. And, you know, I think that what helped me turn the corner was just him saying, you know everything about it. You know more than me here. I love you. No matter what happens, no matter what you want, I love you. And I think that just helped me, like, boom, here it is. Turn the corner now, let's go.
So you felt like he gave you the keys to the
Just
bus,
like,
right
yeah.
there, like, to your own bus.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. What about you, Cole? You got time to think about it. He had the advantage here. He got to sit there and think about it. He didn't even hear what you said because he was like running through it. He's got a whole head full of stuff that's been told to him.
I do, man. That's a tough question. I mean, man, I think about all the people that were my coaches, you know, like, man, you know, not just Burl Miller, but, you know, people like Fred Arnch, you know. I think when you said that, the first thing that popped in my head was, never was a horse couldn't be rode, never was a cowboy couldn't be throwed. Yeah. You know, so, I mean, I thought about that. That was the first thing that popped in my head. But I don't know. I think that, like all these coaches, Tom Kinney, you know, he always says the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is getting up in the morning. You know, so that's another one, you know, and you know, just, I don't know. Burl had a different quote every day. So it's like, I don't know. I think just in our program, like all the people and coaches like that I was around, or people that I'm around every day, like just the common thread is just we're all in it to make great people, and that's what's, to me, that's what I say, and that's the most important thing. Be a good person.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Big red rocking chair on Elm, off Adams in LaGrange.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Was that fun with those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't do one last year. We've done them. The original was to try to do it every couple weeks or every month, like 3 years ago. And we did it, and then we did it 2 years ago, and then with COVID and everything, like we tried to make it work. And then last year they were just, it's hard getting those two in the same room at the same time because they're both busy. I mean, look, you see Chloe, they're going to be in Idaho, Dustin's going to be in Reno, you know what I mean? Especially this time of year. So yeah, it was great. It was good talks about wrestling, about just, you know, not just LeGrand and EOU, but wrestling overall. We had the conversation about being girls wrestlers being able to double dip, which means girls wrestling can younger girls wrestlers can wrestle in the girls bracket, but then they can also wrestle in the boys bracket. And I think from middle school on, you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because as long as there's enough to have a girls tournament, girls should be wrestling girls from middle school on, in my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, let's look outside at the weather. It's kind of the same as what it has been the last couple of days. There was a little bit of sunshine yesterday. That was nice.
It looks cold out there.
Yeah, it is chilly. So let's look at the weather for the next couple of days. So 39 high today, 41, 42, and 43 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So it's just going to get warmer, warmer, warmer.
Yeah, by a degree, but not much precipitation.
No.
Over the next few days, which is
well, it's not cold enough to snow anyway, so it would have just been rain, which would have been even more miserable.
yeah. It gets really. I mean, it was that way on Sunday, where it was just like it dumped snow and then it just was sloppy.
Yeah.
Wet. Yeah.
I wonder if we're just going to have a really late winter. It's going to be winter in like May.
Well, and it could be, which
That
can
sucks
be,
for-
which can be
for
a
spring
ton of problem.
sports.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, part of that is that messes up the farmer's schedule too, because they're late getting into the field, or when it does come down, when it melts, it just everything comes at once, and it just creates a real mess. So,
Yep.
who knows?
Cool.
Alrighty. Well, Rob Cashell, the Cascade Collegiate Conference Commissioner, wow, that's a mouthful, is going to be with us here in just a minute. He has spent a significant amount of time right here in LeGrand and at EOU, and currently lives in Corvallis, right?
Corvallis.
Yep. So he'll be with us right after this.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku. Here in Eastern Oregon, we're blessed to live in such a wonderful area. And though it may seem mild-mannered, there's actually quite a lot that goes on in this area. And apparently, there's two dinguses who happen to be here that are actually crazy enough to get up at the crack of dawn to talk about it. Tune in to AM Live on EOA with Brent and Doddsy, featuring special guests, weather, sports, news, and more, every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m., only on EOA Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
All right, we're back with Rob Cashell. How are you, man? Can we hear you? Can you hear us?
I don't think he can hear us.
Okay. Go ahead and talk, Rob. Can you hear us? I don't think we can. So refresh. Sorry, guys.
Send it to a break, Benny.
Yeah.
We'll be back after this.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku. Here in Eastern Oregon, we're blessed to live in such a wonderful area. And though it may seem mild-mannered, there's actually quite a lot that goes on in this area. And apparently, there's two dinguses who happen to be here that are actually crazy enough to get up at the crack of dawn to talk about it. Tune in to AM Live on EOA with Brent and Doddsy, featuring special guests, weather, sports, news, and more, every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m., only on EOA Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
Alrighty, I think we're back. Can you hear us, Rob?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Damn. We got it worked out.
All right, good. You might have to turn him up just a little bit, Benny, if he'll adjust his volume. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Yeah, good to talk with you, and glad things are going good for you. So, you're in Corvallis now, is that right?
I am, yeah. Heather and I moved over here in 2019, and I've been here since then.
All right. So, are you hearing? Can you hear him? Okay, Benny. Yes. Okay, good.
So wait, you lived over here and you're the commissioner for 7 years?
Yeah. I was when I was in LeGrand, took over this job as commissioner, and was the commissioner while we were living there, and then moved over here in 19.
Was that a lot of driving?
It's all kind of depends on where the championships are, right?
Yeah.
Lately, I've been spending as much time going back over to EOU and College of Idaho because, the programs have been so solid and championships have been there. Or in a rotation, we've had championships there. Track and field, as an example, was there last year, and women's wrestling. So it's all kind of the luck of the draw. You're either driving east or west.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's the cool part is you get to like come back to the place where, I mean, you were the athletic director here for what, 11 years?
Yeah, 2001 to 2012 was the AD at Eastern. So yeah, had a pretty good run there.
What brought a Frontier Conference guy to the CCC?
Well, that's a great question. And I was the athletic director at Montana Western. It was called Western Montana College at the time, from 1995 to 2001, and I had gone to school there and done a lot of different things there professionally. Worked in admissions and housing development. Did a lot of things in athletics, etc. So for me, it was just kind of time to branch out and do something different. I had been in Montana my entire life, grew up there, and just was ready for a change and a challenge, and wanted to see if I could, be successful somewhere else as well. So the EOU opportunity came open, and applied for it. Was fortunate enough to have an opportunity, and we had 18 great years in LeGrand, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, basically raised your daughters here. I mean, from the time they were little all the way through high school.
Yeah, when Hannah was 4, not quite 4 when we moved, and Elizabeth was just over 2 when we moved. No, excuse me, just over 1 when we moved. Wow. So yeah, we had little ones, and Heather and I, Heather's from Montana as well, so all of our family was there. So we were kind of striking out a little bit on our own, if you will, as a young family, but LeGrand, very similar to where we were at. We grew up in a rural area, small town. I remember when I interviewed, people were asking if you're going to be okay in a small town, and I remember saying, hey, LeGrand's twice as big as the town we're living in now, so yeah, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and where in Montana were you raised?
Well, I grew up in Butte, Montana.
Okay.
And then my wife grew up in Dillon, which is about 60 miles south.
Yeah.
And that's where we both went to school, was Montana Western, and so yeah, Western Montana, very rural, very a lot of outdoor activity. Matter of fact, I mean, when we first pulled into LeGrand, I remember saying, "Man, this looks and feels like home." So
yeah,
that made the transition really pretty easy from that standpoint. We were used to it, used to a small town, and all those great things that a small town brings.
Yeah. And I totally get that, because I was, grew up in Wyoming, and, and we spent a lot of time in Montana and I have family in Kalispell, and so I made a lot of road trips that direction and through that area. So I totally get it. And Butte, that was the home of Evel Knievel, right?
It sure was, yeah. Evel Knievel from Butte. Yeah. Also, unbelievable mining town. Copper mining. At one point, it was the largest copper mine in the world. So kind of a boom and bust kind of a community with mining and everything. But yeah, Evel Knievel.
Not a lot of people know that. I mean, it's like, we're kind of showing our age there, Rob. So, but yeah, he was a big thing in the 80s or whenever that was. So,
man, late 70s, early 80s and stuff. And, when we grew up, Butte had a big 4th of July parade, not unlike other communities, but when Evel was back in town, because he kept a home in Butte, when he was, traveling all over the world and doing his thing. But when he was in town, he would be in the parade, and he'd have all of his semis and all of his, and he'd ride his motorbike up and down the parade route and do all of the, he wouldn't do any jumps, but he'd do the the wheelies. And I mean, as kids, you were just enthralled. You loved it.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, because I mean, thinking back on it, he was kind of like this combination of Elvis and a motorcycle. I mean, he was really at the very beginning of the take the show on the road thing, and I mean, anyhow, that was what an error that was. So
Yeah, for sure.
So then have you always, what about like your support for Carroll College? Has that always been when you're here, was that ever a conflict for you? As like, okay, because were you one of their supporters and fans when you were there?
Supporter or fan? No. Hey, when I was at Montana Western, I was all in on Montana Western, and when I was at Eastern,
right?
I was
That's right,
all in
okay.
on Eastern. You have a healthy respect for everybody. But yeah, hey, when I was a Bulldog, I was a Bulldog, and when I was a Mountaineer, I'm a Mountaineer, and you want to win, and you want to do it the right way. But man, hey, you want to beat them guys, and just as bad as they want to beat you.
Yeah.
Didn't you go to Northern too?
I did. I got my master's degree from Northern. So yeah, I've my undergrad is from Montana Western, and then I have a master's degree from Montana Northern.
Wow. Did you grow up? Are you same era, like same age as Brad Mills? He's from Butte.
Brad's a couple years older than me. Yeah. Craig, his younger brother Craig, and I are a little closer in age. I think Craig was a year older than me. And then Brad was a couple years older. But yeah, we're, kind of in that same era, but Brad's a couple years older.
Yeah. Brad's EOU Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he sure is. Baseball guy, and I think he's living up in Canada now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is. He got remarried.
And Craig, his brother, I think is still down in the Boise area. It might be Idaho Falls area, but yeah, great family. Knew those guys growing up, and for sure.
Crazy how small the world is. You know what I mean? Like how people come. You know what I mean? Because he was still living here when you took over as athletic director for EOU. He had to have been.
Yeah, he was still there, and his daughter, obviously a great athlete, and great athlete for LeGrand High School, and then I think played 1 or 2 years for Angie.
She did, yep.
And then concentrated on school and stuff. But yeah, Lauren, it was really cool when we moved to LeGrand, knowing that another Montana guy was there.
I hate to bring up this word, but I mean, you were the commissioner during probably the toughest 2-year stretch in Cascade Collegiate Conference history, and that's the big C word, COVID. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was an amazing time, that's for sure, and from my standpoint, not a whole lot changed for me personally because, I work from home, so I was already kind of isolated, if you will, and didn't have that personal kind of disruption. Where the real disruption came, obviously, was in not being able to participate. And then when we were able to participate, all of the things we had to do from a standpoint of testing and the daily health checks, and then if something happened, when people had to be isolated and not be able to come back to their team, and then all the external stuff that was going on at the time. I remember when we were trying to get ready to participate, just out of the blue, the governor's office says Oregon State and University of Oregon are free to play, and they had a plan moving forward. Everybody else, you're shut down. And that was with zero warning. Zero warning. We had no idea that was coming.
Oh, that's crazy.
And we had a plan, and we had put our plan forward, and the health department at the time just wouldn't budge.
Wow.
And then slowly, then they let Portland State and University of Portland play because they were Division I. And they're, it's easy to be critical looking back, but it's also you have to remember that people were making the best decisions they could with the information they had.
On the fly.
But yeah, it was crazy. We couldn't play at our level. Division II, Division III couldn't play in the state of Oregon. And I remember kind of one of the things that just sent me over the edge was they said we couldn't play at our level, but they let teams from out of state come and play. So I remember Carroll College women's basketball came and played Oregon State during COVID.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let,
Carroll
Bushnell
play.
or Corbin, which is right, 30 minutes away. We couldn't play.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. Doddsy, during that time, we were really lucky too. A professor at Corbin had done all of her doctoral research in testing, in PCR testing.
Wow.
And I learned a lot about COVID and a lot about PCR testing that I never thought I'd ever learn. But, PCR testing has been around for a long time, and it certainly does more. You can test for more than just COVID. But she did all of her doctoral work in this area. So she actually, early on, provided us a pathway in which we could participate. So what we did is we partnered with her and with Santiam Hospital over in Staten, Oregon.
Yeah.
And we were having our student athletes at all of our institutions doing saliva testing. So they would get up, we'd have a schedule at Eastern Oregon University, and the volleyball team would go in at 6 a.m. and do their saliva sample, and we'd FedEx it to the hospital, and they'd do the testing. But what made it possible for us, because you guys remember at the time, a PCR test was a couple $100 every time you did it.
Yeah.
Well, we were able to do this saliva testing for $5 a test.
Oh, wow.
So
big difference.
So it allowed us to safely participate, and it didn't break the bank. And forever thankful to Sarah Comstock and her work and helping us get through that. But yeah, it was a difficult time for sure.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me, as covering EOU and as a fan as well, was just seeing the way that the athletic directors and the SIDs were treated, at games. It was terrible, Rob. People were just disrespectful. They'd throw their masks on the ground. It's it's not these people that are making you wear this mask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was just hard. It was one of those times where you're man, that being an SID and an athletic director is already a hard enough job. Mm-hmm. Let's not make it harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It was, I think people's true colors came out, and whether it was their political belief or their philosophical belief or whatever, the SIDs, the athletic directors, the athletic trainers.
Oh yeah.
They just worked so hard during that time, and one of the things that really shone through for me during that time is how great our student athletes were. Man, they got up, they went and did their testing, they wore the masks, they did everything we asked of them for the most part, and just did an amazing job to not only participate in an activity that they loved, but to, more importantly, go to school and get everything done that they needed to get done. So when I look back on that time, that's one of the best things that I remember is how great our student athletes were.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I have a question for you. We had Police Chief Gary Bell and Jason were on the other day, and we were talking about, I think we were commiserating after the show offline, and you guys were talking about how the athletes staying out of trouble, that changed a great deal when you became the athletic director here, because you, I don't know, maybe you explained that a little bit better than what I just thought it was an interesting conversation, Kyle.
Yeah, it was basically the whole integration of student athletes into the general public in LeGrand hadn't really like taken place as much until you got here, and there was this expectation of student athletes, because even Chief Bell brought it up, like in the mid to early 90s, or mid to late 90s, it was pretty bad. I mean, there was some pretty bad big parties and like fights, and just there wasn't the integration that there was today. You know what I mean? And Chief Bell basically gave you a lot of that credit.
You did, yeah. Is that something?
Well,
go ahead and comment on that.
That's certainly nice to hear. I think it goes back to just accountability, right? Most young people function pretty well if they know what's expected of them, and it's clearly defined, and you lay out, hey, this is how we do things, and this is the expectation. And, certainly we all are fallible and we're all going to make mistakes. But if you hold people accountable and love them through those mistakes, even if the consequences are, hey, you might not be part of the team anymore, or you might have to do some things that maybe you might not want to do, but it's accountability. And I think that grew from how I grew up personally, and how I saw people that I valued, treat athletics, and where I grew up, Butte, Montana, is an unbelievable sports town, and they love it, almost to a fault, and but with that came a lot of responsibility and accountability.
Yeah.
And I was always a big believer when I was in the athletic director role is, athletics does not need to be a negative on a campus. And many times you see that, right? And it can be a great addition to the campus, and it can be something that's really, really positive. And for the most part, the students are working really, really hard academically. They're working hard in their sport. And then it's our job as administrators and coaches and to provide those bumpers, if you will, of, hey, this is how we're going to behave ourselves, and this is what the expectation is. And that all goes back to holding people accountable. And not just the student athletes, right? You have to hold coaches accountable to the type of individuals they're recruiting. You have to hold everybody accountable to a standard that is what you want to represent. Because, hey, Eastern Oregon it's a huge part of LeGrand and that valley. And you're representing not only Eastern Oregon University, but you're representing the people of LeGrand, the Valley, the Grand Ronde Valley. So it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. The CCC has grown from 12 to 23 teams since you've been the commissioner. Is that right?
Yeah. When I took over as commissioner, we actually had 10, and we were losing one. Concordia was going Division II at the time, so we were going to be down to 9. So yeah, we have 12 full-time members now, and then we have 11 what we term as associate members.
Right,
and
which don't have
those are
all of the...
Yeah, they participate in our league in a certain amount of sports. So we have 12 full members and then 11 associate members.
So over the last few years, especially, the CCC has been pretty dang successful. I mean, I can sit here and rattle off teams, but take a chance to brag on the CCC a little bit.
Well, you're right, and we've had great success in our league, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Coaches, really good coaches being hired by great administrators, and recruiting not only great athletes but great people and good students. And last year was probably our banner year in terms of national success. We had 6 national championship teams last year. We had, I think, 10 track and field individual national champions. I think we had 3 wrestling national champions on the men's side, and I think 3 or 4 on the women's side. So yeah, and then we had 2 runner-up places and a runner-up in the beach volleyball invitational. So yeah, it was an unbelievable year last year. And then, we started off this year great. College of Idaho just won the women's cross country national title. Khaki and EOU Mountaineers obviously were in the semifinals of volleyball for the second year. Yeah, so things are looking great.
What's the as the commissioner? So you're in charge of everything, right? From marketing to like hiring and firing of your people, your SID, all that. But then you're also like the image of the CCC. What's the hardest part about that job?
Oh boy, that's a great question, Doddsy. Yeah, and the reason it's a great question is because I don't know. It's hard to think of anything that's really, super difficult or something I dread. Probably the hardest part, and I would say even as a commissioner or even as an athletic director to a certain degree, is much of what you do is you are implementing policy. So that's a lot of what I do. I make sure that the policy that is voted on by the coaches and approved by athletic directors or council of presidents, et cetera, I enforce those policies. There's very, very few things that I do independent of policy. So, whether it's the type of schedule we have, or what do you do in a rain out, or how you do tiebreakers, or who picks player of the week, all that kind of stuff. 99% of what I do is driven by policy that is agreed upon long before we start a season. So I think probably the hardest thing is making sure, or trying to get people who might not know to that detail, what it is that you're actually doing. So, if somebody is suspended for a game or something like that, most of it is based off of either sport rule or policy that we've already enacted. How we do tiebreakers, things like that. So yeah, that's probably the most difficult part is just trying to make sure, all the armchair quarterbacks and the pundits, who think you're just making it up as you go.
That's funny. I mean, I fired you off a couple emails before. I'm not gonna lie. What about
but at least you asked the question and then allowed for the answer to be provided, right? And then after you got the answer, I'm assuming maybe you agreed with it, maybe you didn't.
It makes sense. Yeah, I just like to understand more than anything.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to say it. What do you love about your job? What's your favorite part of it?
Oh gosh, by far my favorite is when we're at a championship, and it really doesn't matter what championship,
100%.
Because that's when I get to interact with the coaches and the student athletes the most, and I just love that. Because you truly get to see the hard work that's been put in, the gratitude that most of the time the student athletes show towards each other, towards their coaches, towards the event itself. So I love being around when we have our championships and I'm able to interact with the coaches and the student athletes and get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, you can tell too. Like I knew that. I could have answered that question for you.
Well, Rob, you and I, and I don't think Kyle and the rest of my staff knows this, but you and I intersected a long time ago, back in 2011, I think it was. Yeah, and when nobody was streaming, and you were the athletic director here at EOU, and the Frontier Conference kind of put together a sports network, and you guys bought the equipment but didn't really know what to do with it, and And so then you guys hired me to come and direct the football games, and that was a lot of fun. And so that's where you and I connected and got to know each other. And those were fun days back then. I mean, nobody was streaming, and that was a cool thing.
It was new to everybody, right? So
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
we bought the TriCaster, we bought,
Yep.
other stuff that I don't know what it did or whatever, but you or somebody else said, "Oh yeah, we need this or we need that," and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it really was on the ground floor of streaming, and now it just seems like it's so much easier to do from a technical standpoint. Probably harder from a manpower and all of that, because you have to do you have to keep up, right? You got to do all the graphics now. You got to do all the But yeah, you were kind of in on the ground level of that, and I see what Gibb and others are doing now up at Eastern, and they're just doing a great job, and those productions are as good as anything you see. They just do a great job.
Yeah, and I'm still in touch with Marty Lyons from.
Are you?
Yeah, up in Montana. We still intersect every once in a while. He's the one who kind of put that beginning network together from a technical standpoint. Yeah, and that experience has drastically affected. That kind of again, I love live production, loved it then, but a lot of that equipment was totally out of reach for me, and so now you probably know we do the Shrine football game every summer. That's our biggest production. But that that is because part of that is because of the experience that I had way early, at EOU with the very beginning. Yeah, and Gibb is in fact, we hire Gibb for the Shrine football games. He's part of our team and staff, and he just does a tremendous job. So
there you go, Brent. That's the key to success, is find the right people and let them go to work, right? That's what I did with you, and that's what you just did with Gibb. So
yep,
yeah,
it's
really cool.
That's very much our philosophy here. Is we try and, I try and hire people that are way better at it than what I ever would be, and turn them loose, give them some ownership in the process, and that, and then real synergy happens. Something way bigger than what we ever could have imagined. So I'm not a big sports guy. I enjoy sports, but how do conferences even begin? I don't, how did the collegiate conference, how did that even start? And then I guess I wonder, how are they paid for? Who pays your salary? How is it, how does the financial side of that work too? I'm curious.
Yeah, good question. And I would say, a conference, essentially it's a group of like-minded institutions that want to get together and form and provide an opportunity for intercollegiate athletics, right? So there's 21 conferences in the NAIA. Part of your national structure filters down because, in the NAIA, getting to nationals requires what's called conference direct. So you go through your conference to get to a national tournament. You can operate as an independent. It's a lot harder to get to nationals or to get to postseason in that role. So for us in the NAIA, a conference is really necessary because you want to have access to postseason. And in the NAIA, that access is through what's called direct qualification. The Cascade Conference has been around for a lot of years. It actually started in, I think, 78 as a volleyball alliance. And then we kind of officially say we've been a conference since 1993. So what happens is, all of the schools, there's membership dues that they pay for the operation of the conference. And so you bring in those dues, you bring in revenue through sponsorship, things like that. There are certain times where postseason revenue is brought to the conference office. Not all the time, but in some instances, and that's how the operations of the conference are funded.
All right. And then how big is your staff? Who helps you with this as you operate here, Rob?
Yeah, so I'm considered a full-time employee, and then I have one other full-time employee. Her name is Courtney Blummer, and Courtney is our director of communications, and she does an awesome job. And if you see any of our stuff coming out that's graphic or video or Instagram and all of that kind of stuff, that's Courtney. She just does a tremendous job. She was an NAIA athlete. She moved to Oregon from Minnesota, and she's recently graduated. She has 2 degrees. She has a degree in communications and a degree in criminal justice, which is an interesting combination.
Yeah.
And she played softball at Cardinal Stritch, an NAIA institution, and just has done an amazing job for us. As a matter of fact, it's almost 1 year since I hired her. And then Sam Grist, who you guys know really well. Sam is what we call as our conference statistician. So he makes sure that all of our conference stats are up to date, and he does all that stuff, Brent, to talk about, get the right people and let them go. Sam understands all of the stat programs and how the schools get their stats to our conference office, and then he handles all of that. He's part-time for me. And then I have an eligibility chair, Mickey Bush, who again is a part-time employee, and she handles all of our eligibility. So the way the eligibility works is a school does eligibility on their campus. They submit it to our eligibility chair, who reviews everything, and then ultimately it goes to the NAIA. So yeah, we're a small staff, but we think we're small but mighty, and we get a lot done on behalf of our student athletes, and work really hard at it. And it's easy to work really hard at it because it's a labor of love, really.
So, and then again, these are newbie questions, but they're non-sport, or they're sports questions, but just out of ignorance. And that is, so at EOU, football is a part of the Frontier Conference, but volleyball is a part of Cascade, right? So, I mean, talk about, do they change their sports? I mean, why are some sports in different conferences, and do you have times that schools like, well, we want to move our sport from this particular sport from this conference to Cascade? I mean, maybe talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question, and essentially it goes back to our national organization and that direct qualification. So the magic number in the NAIA is 6. So if you have 6 institutions sponsoring a particular sport, you would qualify for an automatic qualification to postseason. So when you look at football as an example, and when I was there as the AD, us in Southern Oregon were the only 2 schools in the Cascade Conference sponsoring football. So obviously that's below the number needed for an AQ. So we actually applied to the Frontier Conference, Eastern did, and Southern did at the same time. We were admitted at the time when we got in 2004, I think it was, and Southern was not let in at that time. But we joined the conference for a couple of reasons. Number one, it provided our football program a home, so we didn't have to operate as an independent anymore. And at the time, we brought value to the Frontier because they only had 5 schools participating. So we brought that AQ to them by them bringing us into the league. They were then guaranteed an automatic qualification to postseason. So similar, if you look at the reverse of that, Carroll College, Rocky, and Providence are in our league for soccer. They're the only 3 schools in the Frontier that sponsor soccer. So they were in the same situation, just in reverse. So they applied to our league because what that does is that gives them access to that postseason. Plus, it also gives you a schedule, right? When you're an independent and you're out there trying to find, in the sense of football, hey, I'm an independent. I have no built-in schedule. I have to go look for 10 games every year.
Oh yeah, not fun.
Same thing in soccer. Carroll and Rocky and Providence, they were out before they joined our league. They're looking for 18 games every year.
Wow.
So by joining our league, we brought them into the conference rotation, and so then you have, on the men's side, as an example, you've got 13 of those 18 games built in. You don't have to think about it. So now I'm looking for 5 rather than 18.
Wow.
It's the same for men's wrestling too, right? Men's wrestling has some Frontier schools that because there's no Frontier conference in men's wrestling.
Yeah, great point, Doddsy. Same thing. About 5 years ago, wrestling went to what's called direct qualification. Prior to that, they had regional tournaments where they would bring everybody together in a regional, and then the NAI switched that and said, "Hey, we're gonna go to direct qualification just like we have for all of our other sports."
I like that.
So when that happened, we thought, hey, you know what? Here's an opportunity for us to take the lead, kind of control our own destiny, if you will. So at the time, Eastern had wrestling, Southern Oregon had wrestling, Warner Pacific had wrestling, and so none of us, we didn't have enough for a direct qualification. The Frontier didn't. Some of the schools down in California and Arizona that are now part of our league didn't. So we took the lead on that and said, hey, we'll administer it. We'll serve as the home conference, if you will. And so that's where that membership has grown from.
Is that the same for women's wrestling too, pretty much?
It is.
It is, yeah. Okay, that's cool. I like that. I like the fact that they got rid of those regional tournaments and it's just, you have your conference championship and then, you can qualify as many as 12 dudes. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. You can enter up to 12 in the men's and women's conference tournament. And then what's really cool is the number of allocations you get to nationals is based off your conference in that entire year. So,
and the CCC gets a ton.
We do get a ton, and it's because we've got some really, really good wrestling programs in our league.
Yep.
So if you're ranked individually in the top 25 at the end of the year before the tournament. So as an example, let's say there's 41 individuals ranked throughout all of the weight divisions in our league in the top 25. So what that means is that your conference gets 41 allocations to nationals.
Yeah.
So now it's by the weight class. So, let's say in heavyweight, you got 5 dudes or 5 young women that are ranked in that top 25. Then in that weight class, you're sending 5 people to nationals.
Yeah.
Now they got to go win
including your conference champion.
The conference champion is part of that 5.
That 5, yeah.
Yeah, so if I've got 5, so let's say you're ranked number 1 in heavyweight, and you go there and you win it, you're one of those 5 that get to go.
Yeah, but because
now, if you came in ranked number, yeah, but you got to still go perform, and that's what's really cool about it because you can come into the tournament ranked number 1. So let's say you came into the tournament ranked number 1, and then you got beat. Well, you're not an automatic. You'd have to wait and see if you get an at-large. Gotcha. So it makes the wrestling tournament intense.
Right. Is there any new sports? I'm a huge fan and I've been talking about this for a long time. I think EOU needs to get beach volleyball. I've said that over and over and over. We're really successful. You look at Corbin, you know what I mean? I don't see why we haven't like tried for it yet. Are there any new sports coming that you can talk about, or for any of the teams in the CCC?
Yeah, first of all, I would say Kaki would agree with you that,
100%.
that she's ready to add beach volleyball. And I think they are looking at it, and when they do it, or if they do it, I know it'll be a good decision, and a decision made done really well, because Angie and Kaki and everybody does a great job up there. But beach volleyball is probably, I would say by next year, we will officially name beach volleyball a new championship sport. We have 5 right now that are competing in it. Again, that magic number is 6.
Yep.
And from what I understand, we do have a couple of schools looking at adding it and announcing that fairly soon. So I think beach volleyball is the next one. Beyond that, I think we've added men's wrestling, we added women's wrestling, golf. We've had women's golf and men's golf. Beach volleyball is probably next up on, and then after that, I'm not quite sure. A few schools had sponsored lacrosse, but then a couple of them ended up dropping lacrosse. I don't think it's quite made it out west in full yet. Very, very popular in eastern United States, and
Yeah.
so I think it's slowly migrating out this way, but that might be 4 or 5 years down the road for us.
That's been one of EOU women's lacrosse's struggles, is finding games. I mean,
Yeah.
really, like they're just constant. There's not a lot of NAIA schools with lacrosse. I mean, I couldn't even name you another one, actually, just because there's not any out here.
Yeah, I think College of Idaho has a club team. Corbin had women's lacrosse, but they ended up dropping it, I believe, for a lot of those reasons. And I think that's the hard part about adding a sport on your campus when you don't necessarily have a built-in conference or a built-in schedule, because then you end up traveling all over the place, and so it costs a lot of money, may not get as many games. So I think you really have to think through your sport offerings when you're looking at adding.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan for beach volleyball in Eastern Oregon. I know it doesn't really make sense when you think about it in your head, like beach volleyball in Eastern Oregon, but I think it would just take our volleyball here to the next level. Honestly,
How many teams are on a beach volleyball? Sorry, how many players? Is it like
it's 2-on-2.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, okay.
2 versus 2, yeah.
Yeah.
But they play a 5-team match, if you will. So
Right.
you have
So you have your ones playing your
five
ones.
groupings of 2 versus 2.
Yep. It's
5
like tennis.
groupings of
So
two. Okay,
you have
yeah.
your ones playing your, like if EOU was playing Corbin, it'd be the first seed team versus the first seed team, second team versus the second, and then it's 5 matches, and then whoever wins the most out of 5 is the.
And then how many players are on each team? Just 2?
Two.
Okay. There's no substituting. There's just
No, it's just straight up 2-on-2.
well, that's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it would be awesome.
Yeah. So, well, Rob, thank you so much for being with us here today. Yeah, awesome conversation and good to connect. When you and I talked on the phone the other day, I was like, okay, well, it told you where the studio was, and like, well, I'm not in La Grande anymore, and I didn't even know. Yeah. So, but yeah, and thanks for wading through the technical difficulties with us and stuff. The other day when you said, I talked to you on Monday. You said, well, I could come on tomorrow, and I'm like, we need a little bit more time to figure out the technical side of it. So, but
thank you. And you got Bennett there handling the technical stuff, and Bennett, he may not know this, but I was talking to his dad the other day because I was updating some of our records, and Ben, his dad, obviously longtime coach at Eastern,
Longest tenured.
Yeah, he was named Coach of the Year again in cross country, and so I was updating our records, and I started counting. The guy's got 27 Conference Coach of the Year awards between men's and women's cross country and track and field.
27.
Unbelievable.
In 36 years.
Wow.
He's got 27 of them. And then, this will be a good one. I haven't even told Ben this. I was updating national records because the College of Idaho coach was the National Coach of the Year for women's cross country. So I was going through those records. And Ben was the National Coach of the Year in 1997. I didn't even know that. So I had to update that record as well.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, he's EOU's longest tenured coach, 36 years.
Yeah.
He's got his
Does a
own
great
little
job.
office out in the field house now. He's happy.
Oh man, that added 15 years to his career having that field house.
Hey, it's a huge recruiting point for EOU and for the Cascade Conference as well.
Yeah. I will say, Doddsy, that might also be something we're looking at is indoor track and field as a championship sport. A number of our schools participate in indoor. We just have never had, even the hint of where would we do it. But now with Ben having that facility, it really is a possibility now and could be a reality in the next few years.
Nice. And just so people know, what he's talking about is there's a lot of teams in the CCC that have indoor track and field, but right now they're on a automatic qualifier system. Like they don't have a championship at the end of indoor track and field that decides who's going to go. That you have to hit a certain mark in order to make it to nationals in indoor track and field.
Yeah, and that's the same in outdoor too. We choose to have a conference championship in outdoor. And you can use that as a qualifier as well, but yeah, you're right. You're not required to have a conference championship in indoor and outdoor track and field to move on to nationals.
Right. Cool.
All righty. Well, hey, thanks. Hang around with us for just a minute while we do the end of the show. Yeah, why don't you take it
Thank you,
away.
guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's get them out of here. On this day, 1751, December 14th, the first military academy in the world, the Theresian Military Academy, is founded in Austria. On this day in 1793, the first state road is authorized in the U.S. It ran from Kentucky to Cincinnati. 1903, on this day, the Wright brothers' first attempt to fly the Wright Flyer in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Obviously, it was unsuccessful because it wouldn't say the first attempt. You know what I mean? It would say they flew.
Yeah.
1967 on this day, DNA is created for the first time in a test tube. 2003 on this day, U.S. President George W. Bush announces the capture of Saddam Hussein. 2016 on this day, Amazon announces its first delivery by drone, 2 kilometers from their warehouse in the UK. So they delivered a package 2 kilometers away by drone. That's crazy. I'm surprised we don't have more drone deliveries now.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're working on it.
and then 2021 on this day, Steph Curry made his 2,974th three-pointer to surpass Ray Allen as the NBA's all-time three-point shooter.
Wow.
Quote for the day. Oh, yeah. Should we do quote first? Yeah, let's do quote first today. You can't get much done in life if you only work on the days you feel good. And that's Laker great Jerry West. One more time. You can't get much done in life if you only work on the days you feel good. And then we'll end it with this one. The #1 song in America on this day in 1993, again by Janet Jackson.
All right.
Boom.
Yep. Well, hey, thank you, Rob, again for being with us. Appreciate it. Yeah.